My name is Anna, and for the past 2 years I believed I had the perfect marriage. I married James, a man who seemed to be everything I ever wanted. Kind, loving, and attentive. I met him when I was still in college, and after dating for a few years, we got married. It felt like a dream come true. Everything about him made me feel secure, loved, and cherished. We didn't have any major issues. Life was simple and happy, but that was before I found out I was pregnant. I had been feeling a little off for weeks, fatigue, nausea, mood swings, but I thought it was just stress. After all, work had been hectic and I had been traveling a lot. I took a pregnancy test one afternoon, and the result was undeniable. I was going to be a mother. My heart swelled with happiness, and I immediately shared the news with James. "James, I have something to tell you," I said that evening, my hands trembling slightly with excitement as I handed him the test. James looked at it, his eyes widening in shock. "Are you serious?" he asked, a smile spreading across his face. "Oh my God, Anna. We're going to be parents." He pulled me into a tight hug, his voice full of emotion. "This is the best news I've ever heard." I smiled back, feeling the warmth of his embrace. For the first time in my life, I truly believed that I was living in a fairy tale. Over the next few weeks, I had regular visits to the doctor, and everything seemed to be progressing normally. But then came the exhaustion. I could barely keep my eyes open during the day, and by evening I was wiped out. I couldn't do the things I once did, clean the house, cook dinner, or even run errands without feeling like I had run a marathon. That's when James made a suggestion that I initially thought was thoughtful and sweet. "Anna, I think we should hire a housekeeper," he said one night as we sat down to dinner. "You should rest, take care of yourself, and not worry about the house. I'll take care of everything." I was hesitant at first. I had always prided myself on being independent and doing things on my own. But James insisted, reassuring me that it would be temporary. "It's just for a while, Anna. You need to focus on your health and the baby." I agreed. And a few days later, Maria, a young woman from the local agency, came to work for us. Maria was in her mid-20s, with long dark hair and a sweet smile. She was polite and always did her job without complaint. At first, I barely noticed her presence. She did the laundry, cleaned the house, and even helped with some of the groceries. I spent my days resting, occasionally going out with James, and enjoying the quiet moments of anticipation for the baby's arrival. But as time went on, I began to feel something shift. James, who had always been attentive, seemed to pull away. He was still kind to me, but there was something in his eyes that I couldn't place. He'd come home late from work, often making excuses for why he couldn't stay for dinner. It started to feel like he was distancing himself from me, and I couldn't help but wonder why. One night, I decided to surprise him with a romantic dinner. I wanted to remind him of the bond we had, to bring back the closeness we once shared. I spent hours in the kitchen preparing his favorite meal, setting the table with candles and flowers. When I was finished, I waited for him to come home. By the time he walked in the door, I was starting to feel a little anxious. It was nearly 8 p.m., and I had expected him home by 6. "James, where have you been?" I asked, trying to mask the frustration in my voice as I got up to greet him. "Oh, sorry, Anna. I had a late meeting at work," he said, his voice sounding strained. "I wasn't expecting dinner." "Dinner's ready. I made your favorite," I said, trying to sound cheerful. "Let's sit down and eat together. I've been waiting for you." He looked at the table and smiled faintly. "That's really nice of you, but I'm so tired, Anna. I'll just have something quick, okay?" I could feel the coldness between us, but I pushed it aside. This was supposed to be a special moment, a reminder of what we had before everything started to change. But it wasn't the same. After a few minutes, James excused himself to the office, saying he had some work to catch up on. I sat there staring at the food that was meant for the two of us, and wondered what was happening to my marriage. The next few days passed by in a blur. I tried not to think too much about it, telling myself that he was just busy with work. But deep down I knew something was off. One afternoon, I woke up from a nap feeling a little groggy. I had been resting in the bedroom as I often did these days, when I realized the house was too quiet. I looked at the clock, noticing it was nearly 4 p.m. I had expected Maria to be cleaning the living room or kitchen, but there was no sound coming from anywhere. I decided to get up and take a walk through the house. As I passed by the bedroom, I heard something that made my blood run cold. A soft moan followed by a low, familiar voice. James's voice. My heart skipped a beat as I slowly approached the door, my breath catching in my throat. I couldn't believe it, but I knew deep down that I wasn't imagining it. I opened the door just a crack, and what I saw sent me into shock. James was in bed, his hands on Maria, the housekeeper. They were entangled in a way I had never imagined, their bodies moving together with a sense of intimacy that shattered everything I thought I knew about my marriage. I froze, unable to move or speak. I was paralyzed, my mind unable to process what was happening right in front of me. I stood there, completely still, my body trembling as I tried to make sense of what I was seeing. My mind raced, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't wrap my head around it. This was my husband, the man I had trusted with everything. And here he was in our bed with Maria. I wanted to scream, to rush in and demand answers, but my legs wouldn't move. All I could do was stare, my heart sinking deeper into my chest. The sound of their quiet, intimate breaths filled the room, and I felt like I was suffocating. Everything I thought I knew, everything I believed in was being torn apart before my eyes. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I stumbled backward, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I ran down the hallway and into the bathroom, slamming the door behind me. My body shook uncontrollably as I sank to the floor, my hands covering my face. I couldn't stop the tears from falling, but I didn't know what hurt more, the betrayal or the confusion. I had always believed in the sanctity of marriage. I had always thought that James and I had something special, something real. But now all of that was in question. How could he do this to me? How could he betray me? Especially when I was carrying his child. The minutes dragged on, each one feeling like a lifetime. I had to think, but my thoughts were clouded by the shock of what I had just witnessed. I couldn't stay in that bathroom forever, though. I had to face reality, as painful as it was. I wiped my eyes and stood up, trying to steady my breathing. I couldn't let this destroy me. I took a deep breath and opened the bathroom door, stepping cautiously into the hallway. The house felt so quiet now, eerily quiet. I could hear the soft hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, and the distant sound of the wind outside, but nothing else. No laughter, no warmth, just emptiness. I walked slowly toward the bedroom, my heart pounding in my chest. When I reached the door, I hesitated. I knew I couldn't confront him right now, not when I was so shaken, not when I was still reeling from what I had seen. But I couldn't avoid this forever. I had to know why. I had to get answers. I knocked softly on the door, my voice barely a whisper. James? Maria? Can we talk? There was a long pause before I heard footsteps approaching. The door opened slowly, and there he stood, looking completely caught off guard. His eyes widened when he saw the expression on my face. His face paled, and he opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. I looked past him, my gaze falling on Maria, who was sitting on the edge of the bed, her cheeks flushed, her hair disheveled. She didn't meet my eyes, her hands resting nervously on her lap. I turned back to James, my voice shaking. How long, James? I asked, the words coming out hoarse. How long have you been doing this? How long have you been seeing her behind my back? James swallowed hard, his eyes darting between Maria and me. He opened his mouth to respond, but no sound came out. I could see the guilt written all over his face, and in that moment, I felt a surge of anger rise in my chest. Answer me, James. I yelled, the floodgates of my emotions opening. I deserve to know the truth. James took a deep breath and stepped away from the door, running a hand through his hair. Anna, I'm sorry, he stammered. I never meant for you to find out like this. I didn't want to hurt you. Then why did you do it? I demanded. Why, James? I don't understand. You're my husband. You made vows to me. We're supposed to be in this together. I know, he said, his voice cracking. I never wanted to betray you. I never wanted to hurt you, but it just happened. It's been going on for a few months now. And I cut him off, my voice trembling with rage. A few months? You've been seeing her for months, James. While I've been at home trying to take care of myself and the baby. And you couldn't even be honest with me? Maria, who had remained silent until then, finally spoke up, her voice soft. I'm so sorry, Anna. I never wanted to hurt you. I turned to her, my eyes burning with fury. You're sorry? You're sorry for what? For betraying me? For lying to me? How could you, Maria? You're supposed to be here to help me. Not. My voice cracked as I couldn't even finish the sentence. It felt like my world had been ripped apart in that instant. Maria lowered her gaze, her hands wringing together. I never wanted to hurt anyone, Anna. I never meant for this to happen. I shook my head, tears blurring my vision. I don't want to hear it. Both of you get out of my house. I don't want to see either of you right now. James stepped forward, his face filled with desperation. Anna, please don't do this. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I'll do anything to make it right. I looked at him, my heart breaking even more. You can't undo what you've done, James. You can't just apologize and expect everything to be fine. I trusted you. I loved you. And you destroyed that. Without another word, I turned and walked out of the room. I didn't care what he said anymore. I didn't care about his apologies or his promises. All I cared about in that moment was getting away from the two of them. Getting away from the life I thought I had. I walked down the hallway, past the empty living room, and out into the garden. The air was cool against my skin, but it felt like the weight of the world was pressing down on me. I couldn't breathe. My mind was racing, my emotions swirling out of control. What was I supposed to do now? Where did I go from here? The sound of footsteps behind me pulled me out of my thoughts. I didn't have to turn around to know it was James. He had followed me outside, probably trying to explain himself again. But I didn't want to hear it. I'm leaving, Anna, he said quietly, standing a few feet away from me. I know I messed up, but please let's talk. Please don't end our marriage over this. I didn't respond. Instead, I stood there in silence, my gaze fixed on the horizon, the weight of the world on my shoulders. The person I thought I knew, the man I loved, was gone, and in his place was a stranger. I couldn't bear to hear his voice anymore. I didn't want his apologies. I didn't want him to try and fix things. I just wanted the truth and nothing more. The days that followed were a blur. After that confrontation, James moved out. It wasn't an immediate decision. He tried calling, texting, even sending flowers, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. The pain of betrayal was too fresh, too raw. I didn't want his apologies, and I certainly didn't want to hear any excuses. All I could think about was how my world had been shattered in one single heart-wrenching moment. Maria had left too. She hadn't come back to work after that day. And though I was glad to see her go, I couldn't shake the sense of emptiness that lingered. The house felt eerily quiet without her presence, and without James, it felt even more like a ghost town. I couldn't help but wonder how things had gone so wrong. How could I have missed all the signs? How could I have been so blind to the truth? I found myself thinking about the baby, our baby, and the future that now seemed uncertain. I should have been excited about becoming a mother. But how could I bring a child into a broken home? How could I possibly raise a baby without a partner who I could trust? The first few days, I stayed in bed, avoiding the outside world. I couldn't bear to face anyone. Couldn't bear the thought of them asking questions. What was I supposed to tell them? That my husband had cheated on me? That my life had been turned upside down? That everything I thought I knew had been a lie? But eventually, I had to pull myself together. I knew I couldn't stay in this state of limbo forever. I had to think about my future and, more importantly, the future of the baby I was carrying. I needed help. That's when I reached out to my sister, Emily. She had always been my rock, the person I could turn to when life felt overwhelming. I knew she'd understand. I called her one afternoon, and when she answered, I could hear the concern in her voice. Anna? What's going on? I've been trying to reach you. I'm a mess, Emily, I admitted, my voice cracking. James, he's gone. I found out he was cheating on me. With Maria. I don't know what to do. There was a pause on the other end, and then Emily spoke, her voice filled with empathy. Oh my God, Anna. I'm so sorry. I don't even know what to say. You must be going through hell right now. I am, I whispered. I don't know how to move on from this. How can I trust anyone again? How do I even begin to pick up the pieces? Emily's tone softened. I'm coming over. I'll be there in an hour. True to her word, She showed up at my door an hour later. Her arms wrapped around me as soon as I opened it. I broke down in her arms, tears streaming down my face as she held me close. "I'm so sorry, Anna," she whispered. "You didn't deserve this. You don't deserve any of this pain. I can't believe it, Em. I thought we had everything. I thought we were happy. I didn't even see it coming," I said between sobs. "I don't know who I am anymore." Emily led me to the couch and sat beside me, her hand resting on my shoulder. "You're Anna. You're strong and you will get through this. It's going to be hard, but you can get through it." I wiped my eyes and nodded. "I don't know if I can. I feel like I've lost everything. I've lost James, I've lost Maria, and I feel like I've lost myself." "You haven't lost yourself, Anna," Emily said firmly. "You're still you, and you're not alone. I'm here. We're all here for you. And as for James and Maria, they're not worth your tears. You deserve so much more than that." Her words were a comfort, but they didn't make the pain go away. I felt hollow inside, like a part of me had been ripped out. It wasn't just the betrayal that hurt. It was the realization that the man I thought I knew, the man I had married, had been someone completely different. And the worst part was that I still loved him even after everything he had done. I spent the next few days with Emily, letting her take care of me in ways I hadn't allowed anyone to before. We spent time together talking, eating, and even going for walks outside. The fresh air helped clear my head. But no matter how much I tried to focus on something positive, my thoughts always circled back to James. The following week, I decided to go through the house. I couldn't live in the same space where so many painful memories had been made. I needed to clear out everything that reminded me of him, everything that felt like a lie. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was necessary. I needed to regain control of my life. I started in our bedroom, the room that had once been filled with love and intimacy. Now it felt like a battleground. I packed up James's things, his clothes, his shoes, his toiletries, everything that belonged to him. I couldn't stand the thought of his belongings still occupying space in my life, a constant reminder of his betrayal. As I went through the closet, I found one of the shirts he used to wear often, the one I loved to see him in. It still smelled like him, and for a moment, I was overcome with emotion. I held it to my chest, my eyes closing as memories of better times flooded back. I remembered the way he used to hold me at night, the way he'd whisper sweet things in my ear. But now all of that felt like a cruel joke. I folded the shirt and placed it in the donation pile, trying to push aside the emotional weight it carried. It was time to let go. I couldn't keep holding on to something that wasn't real anymore. By the end of the day, I had packed up most of his things. I didn't know what to do with them yet, but I couldn't keep them in the house. Every time I saw something that reminded me of him, it felt like a knife in my heart. I needed space to heal, space to breathe. That night, after everything was done, I sat on the couch, exhausted from the emotional toll of the day. The house was empty, save for me and the baby growing inside of me. For the first time in days, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I wasn't alone. I had my sister, I had my friends, and most importantly, I had my baby. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but I also knew that I could do this. I could heal. And no matter what, I would always have my child to remind me that, even in the darkest times, there was still light. The weeks that followed were filled with a strange mix of emotions, grief, anger, confusion, but also a quiet sense of strength I hadn't known I had. Every day felt like a battle, but as time passed, I began to find new ways to cope. I started focusing more on my health and the baby, realizing that for the sake of my child, I needed to pull myself together. There were moments when the pain of James's betrayal would threaten to drown me, but I kept reminding myself that I wasn't alone. I had Emily, my family, and friends who supported me. And most importantly, I had my baby, a little life growing inside me that needed me to be strong. One afternoon, about a month after James had left, I found myself sitting at the kitchen table, sipping a cup of tea, trying to calm my racing thoughts. The house felt quiet, but it was a kind of silence I had grown accustomed to. It was peaceful in a way, despite the sadness that still lingered in my heart. I had finally gone back to work after taking a brief leave of absence, and while it was a distraction, it also brought with it the weight of a new challenge, reintegrating into my routine. It wasn't easy. I found myself struggling to focus, my mind often wandering to thoughts of what had happened. But I tried to push through. The days were long, and the nights were even longer. I couldn't escape the silence when I was alone at home. The house felt like it was holding on to every painful memory of James, and even though I had packed away his things, there were still traces of him everywhere. One day, I decided I needed to clear my mind. I called Emily and asked if she wanted to go for a walk in the park, just to get some fresh air. She agreed and we met up later that afternoon. As we strolled along the path, surrounded by the vibrant green trees and the sound of birds chirping, I felt a sense of calm that I hadn't experienced in weeks. I can't believe how long it's been, though the weight of her words still felt heavy in my chest. It doesn't feel like I'm moving forward. It feels like I'm just surviving. There are days when I don't even know how to get out of bed. And then there are days when I think I'm finally okay, and then something hits me. Like this morning I woke up, and I remembered the way James used to make me coffee on Sundays. And for a moment, I thought everything was normal again. But then I realized it was all just gone. She placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. You're allowed to grieve, Anna. You've been through a lot. And you're not just grieving the loss of James. You're grieving the loss of the life you thought you had. That's huge. I know, I said softly. But I'm scared. I'm scared of the future. I'm scared of doing this alone. I don't even know how to be a mother yet, and now I'm doing it on my own. I don't want to screw this up. You won't screw it up, Emily said with such conviction that it almost made me believe her. You're strong, Anna. You've always been strong. And I know you can handle this. You've got a whole support system behind you. And we'll help you every step of the way. Her words were comforting, but the reality still felt overwhelming. Being pregnant and going through a breakup was the hardest thing I'd ever experienced. The loneliness weighed heavily on me, and I often wondered if I was making the right decision by keeping the baby. But deep down, I knew that this child was a part of me, and no matter what had happened, I couldn't turn my back on it. As the weeks turned into months, I started to accept the changes that had come with this new chapter in my life. I began attending prenatal classes, trying to learn as much as I could about what to expect. It was strange, going to these classes without a partner, without James by my side. But I didn't let it hold me back. I learned everything I could, surrounded myself with women who were in similar situations, and slowly started to feel more confident in my ability to navigate this new life. There were moments when I would allow myself to imagine a future with my baby, just the two of us, a little family of our own. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I also knew that I had the strength to do this. I couldn't change the past, but I could control how I moved forward. One night, a few weeks before my due date, I found myself awake at 3 in the morning, my mind racing. I hadn't heard from James in weeks, not since he'd left. I wasn't sure why I still thought about him, why I still let his presence occupy my thoughts. I had been angry with him for so long, but a part of me still missed him, even though I knew he wasn't the man I thought he was. He had shattered everything I believed in, and yet I still loved him. I knew it wasn't rational, but I couldn't help it. As I lay there, staring at the ceiling, I heard the sound of my phone vibrating on the nightstand. I hesitated for a moment, my heart skipping a beat. When I saw the name on the screen, my stomach dropped. It was James. I took a deep breath and answered the phone, my voice steady despite the rapid beating of my heart. Anna. James's voice came through the line, softer than I remembered. I've been trying to reach you for a while now. I don't know if you'll even talk to me, but I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. I know I messed up. I can't take back what I did. But I need you to know that I regret it every single day. I've been a fool, and I don't expect you to forgive me, but I had to say it. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of his words press down on me. James, I don't know what you want from me. You broke my heart. You betrayed me. I don't know if I can ever forgive you for what you did. I know, he said quietly. I don't expect you to forgive me right now, but I hope someday you can. I've been trying to work on myself. I don't deserve it, but I'm asking for a second chance. I don't know if I can give you that, I replied, my voice trembling. I've been through so much, and I'm trying to focus on what's best for me and my baby. I can't afford to let you back in. Not after everything. There was silence on the other end of the line, and I could hear the pain in his voice as he spoke again. I understand, Anna. I just wanted to say, I love you. And I'll always love you. I swallowed hard, holding back tears. Goodbye, James. I hung up the phone and sat there in the darkness, my heart heavy with emotion. I knew I had made the right choice in moving on, but it didn't make it any easier. Love was complicated. And even when you knew someone had wronged you, it was still hard to let go. I took a deep breath and wiped away a tear. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I knew one thing for sure. I was going to be okay. My baby needed me. And I was going to give everything I had to make sure that little life was surrounded by love and security. As I lay back down, my hand resting on my swollen belly, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. This was my new reality, and no matter how difficult the road ahead might be, I was ready to face it. The weeks seemed to pass in a haze, each one blending into the next as I counted down the days until my due date. My belly grew rounder, and despite the emotional weight I carried, I felt a fierce determination to bring my child into the world in a place of safety and love. I had come a long way from the broken woman I had been just a few months ago, but I wasn't done yet. I still had a long road ahead of me, and I wasn't sure what the future held, but I knew I would face it with courage. James had stopped calling after that night. First, I was relieved. It felt like I could finally breathe without the constant pressure of his presence looming over me. But as time passed, there was a part of me that began to wonder if I had made the right choice. If there was any chance we could ever fix what had been broken. But deep down, I knew it wasn't the right time to entertain those thoughts. I needed to focus on my baby, on myself. The rest could wait. Emily continued to be my rock. She took me to my prenatal appointments, sat with me through endless conversations about baby names, and held my hand when I felt scared. My friends were also a great support, checking in on me, helping me prepare for the baby's arrival, and providing me with the love and encouragement I needed. The fear of facing motherhood alone was still there, but it didn't seem as overwhelming as it had been before. As the days grew shorter and the time drew closer for me to welcome my child into the world, I started to feel an excitement I hadn't expected. I had spent so much of my pregnancy grieving, questioning, and healing, that I hadn't truly stopped to think about the joy this child would bring into my life. My child would not be defined by the pain that had preceded their arrival. They would be their own little person, filled with promise and potential. And then, one evening, as the first signs of labor began, everything changed. It was late, and I was sitting on the couch, my feet up, trying to get comfortable. The baby was particularly active that night, kicking and shifting, as if it too could sense the momentous occasion that was about to unfold. I had been feeling odd for the past few hours, but I chalked it up to the usual discomforts of late pregnancy. Still, something felt different this time. It wasn't until the first contraction hit that I knew. This was it. I grabbed my phone and called Emily, my heart racing. I think it's time." Her voice was full of urgency and excitement. "I'm on my way. I'll be there in 15 minutes. The contractions came fast and strong, and I did my best to breathe through them, focusing on the baby and the incredible journey that was about to unfold. I had made my peace with my situation, with the loss of James and everything that had come with it. But now, in this moment, there was no room for fear. There was only anticipation and a sense of strength I had never known. When Emily arrived, she didn't waste any time. She grabbed my bag, helped me into the car, and drove me to the hospital. The ride there was a blur of pain and excitement, and by the time we arrived, I could hardly believe it was really happening. It felt surreal. A part of me had wondered if I would ever be ready for this, if I would ever be strong enough to do it alone. But now I could feel that I was. I had made it this far, and I wasn't going to let anything stop me. The hours in the hospital seemed to stretch on forever, and yet they passed in the blink of an eye. The pain was intense, but it was a pain with a purpose. Every contraction, every moment of discomfort brought me closer to meeting the child I had carried for so long. Emily stayed by my side the entire time, offering words of encouragement, holding my hand, and keeping me focused on the task at hand. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the moment came. With one last push, my baby was born. The room filled with the sound of their first cries, and I felt a wave of emotion crash over me. This was it. This was the moment I had been waiting for. The nurse placed the baby on my chest, and I gazed down at the tiny squirming bundle in my arms. My heart swelled with love as I looked into their eyes, knowing that this child was my future, my hope, my redemption. They were a symbol of everything I had fought for, and everything I would continue to fight for. "Congratulations, Anna," the nurse said with a smile. "You've done it." I looked at Emily, tears streaming down my face. "I did it," I whispered, almost as if I couldn't believe it. "I really did it." "You sure did," she said, her voice filled with pride. "You're a mom now, Anna. And you're amazing." I held my baby close, marveling at their tiny fingers and toes, the softness of their skin, and the overwhelming sense of love that flooded my heart. In that moment, I knew that nothing else mattered. The pain, the betrayal, the heartache, they all seemed so distant. What mattered now was this little life, this precious gift I had been given. As the days passed and I adjusted to life with my newborn, I found a sense of peace that had eluded me for so long. The hospital visits, the sleepless nights, and the constant demands of motherhood were challenging, but they didn't scare me anymore. I had a purpose now. I had a life to take care of, a future to build. James had tried to reach out a few times since the birth, but I hadn't responded. Part of me wanted to scream at him for all the pain he had caused, but another part of me just wanted to let go of the past and move forward. I had nothing left to say to him. He had made his choices and I had made mine. My focus now was on my baby, and that was where my energy needed to go. One afternoon, as I sat in the living room with my baby asleep in my arms, I thought back to everything that had led me to this moment. I thought about the brokenness, the betrayal, the heartache, but I also thought about the strength I had discovered within myself. I wasn't the woman I had been when I married James. I wasn't the woman who had been blindsided by his lies. I had become something else. A woman who knew what it meant to fight for herself, for her child, and for her future. And as I looked at my baby, their peaceful face resting against my chest, I knew without a doubt that I had made the right decision. This was my new beginning, and I was ready to embrace it with everything I had.